it give you, confidence or belief that NFC North title is possible? Or like, where is your mind from a expectation standpoint?
Yeah, I think NFC North champions in 2026 is very realistic because one of the biggest things that I will continue to just, like beat the drum until the season starts is our quarterbacks last year threw more interceptions than touchdowns. And even if you don't like Kyler Murray, do you think that he's going to throw, 19 interceptions to 13 passing touchdowns this year? Even if you don't like him, I think the answer is still a definitive no. So if we were that bad offensively last year, bottom 6 in a lot of categories, and, Justin Jefferson barely cleared 1,000 yards, yes, I think we can win the NFC North this year, especially when the quarterback play, at least to me, should go nowhere but up. And my biggest concern with Kyler was in that, that vertical passing attack with O'Connell and taking the hits that we mentioned, where O'Connell's quarterbacks do take a lot of hits. That was my concern with Kyler, given when he's under pressure, the play can be erratic. But with everything we've seen so far, it's oddly for this, I mean, we know as a fan base and people that have covered the Vikings, it oddly looks good right now in August.
And Coller, I mean, this because we stand next to each other, but like there is a lot of creativity going on. There's a lot of creativity with formations, with motions. There's quick game dispersed in. There's some like concepts with carryover to what Kyler Murray succeeded in Arizona. A lot of the vertical hits are on these high crossers, which he can kind of see it out deep down the field. So like, I think the more this goes, the more refined what their plan is, like publicly, what their plan is going to be, the more the conversation then turns to how do they gel and adapt, and how does the creativity that we're already seeing meld with that? And I think that's where the next phase of excitement goes for me.
And I also think that when you're talking about those motions and the formations and everything else, that's a lot of Kyler answering questions about how prepared he was going to be for this camp, and taking what he learned in OTAs and the install and bringing it to camp, because I haven't seen too many plays where he's had to, oh, it's a sack, or, oh, I didn't know where that thing was going, or have a conversation with Kevin O'Connell after the play or anything else like that. So I think that he's done a really good job of getting them going. And then I don't think that any team, we can really say at this point in the year, what is their actual ceiling? What could they actually be? Because we have no idea who's going to get hurt, how things are going to play out. People have decided that the Lions have an easy schedule. Do they really? I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably right, but like so many things change throughout a season. But I think that this would be, to this point, probably the best case scenario from what you've seen from Kyler Murray. And I also think that it's probably time for Kevin O'Connell to just shift even further toward him getting more of the work and do what we expected to do as we go into the next phase of training camp. But I do tend to think that with this offense, and if they can improve the running game, which they've talked about a lot, I haven't seen it yet in the couple of padded practices. It's not like it's Adrian Peterson running out there, but I think that it does have a ceiling that's probably similar to what we saw from someone like Sam Darnold.
Prize Picks had the over-under at us talking quarterbacks at 23. So we actually, for those who were on that's what, you got that one. I want to segue to what for me, I think is going to be, I mean, I'm just speaking selfishly, the most fun conversation of this show, and that's the rookies. And we could go all over the map with this because there are a lot of them who have stood out. Garret, I would just say, monitoring things, who of all of them are you most intrigued by and why?
I absolutely can't wait to see Charles Demings play in the regular season, because it's fun to root for a corner that your organization drafted and see the growth of that player throughout, and to see tweets that Justin Jefferson is looking for flags because Charles Demings is covering him. I mean, we're talking about one of the best receivers in the NFL against a day 3 rookie corner, and he's not mossing him the way and winning and routing him up the way he does other corners and has for over half a decade now. So for Charles Demings to look the way he has in camp, and I know James Pierre at times wasn't out there, but we could be looking at a scenario where we kind of have like a Lou Gehrig, Wally Pipp with Charles Demings before James Pierre would even have the opportunity to take the field as a starting corner. So Charles Demings, I'm irrationally excited about and just buying into the idea of a corner that we can, tie ourselves to rather than bringing in these guys that play for 1 year and that we've done for really the past 2 or 3 years.
I think I'm going to have to, to have Chuck Demings, Lou Gehrig, and Wally Pipp in the same sentence is something that I don't know in my life if I would have ever envisioned something like that. Coller, do you feel like the Charles Demings hype is warranted?
I do, and the reason for that is, well, when we think of a day 3 pick, we often think of someone who is kind of a try-hard, who has maybe maximized every bit of their talent and squeezed out every bit of juice out of the orange or something. But because he went to Stephen F. Austin, you might not realize that he was one of the best athletes in the NFL Combine. And then he told us after he was drafted that he was dealing with knee soreness that day and didn't even jump as high as he possibly could. And we see the explosiveness with this guy and the speed and the quickness, and he has the arm length, he has the size. So there isn't one specific thing that's kept him away from this. It's kind of his story and his background of staying at Stephen F. Austin that kept him under the radar. And as you guys saw, teams didn't draft D2 guys. They didn't draft FCS guys this year. They didn't even draft MAC players, basically. It was the assumption that every player who was any good would have moved to a bigger school. I have to imagine that if Charles Demings had transferred to Oregon and played the entire season and gotten 2 or 3 interceptions, that he would have been a higher draft pick. And I also think the guy, like when you just see the way people light up when you ask them about Charles Demings, I mean, we saw it from Byron Murphy at the podium. Brian Flores is always very, very slow to praise rookies because he's seen them all. He's been around. Yeah, he's grizzled. But he even was saying that he takes the things that they're working on in the individual drills and transfers them over to team drills, which is like a huge coach compliment. So I think it's all matching up. I mean, that doesn't mean he's going to start. Like, they've got 2 starting corners and Pierre is a veteran player. But I think what it says is this is the first promising corner that they've drafted in a very, very long time. And I think that it may change their future plans potentially. And also, even I know people can say it's just camp anyway. We just don't see this. We just don't see a 5th rounder at almost any position just come in and start going up against the ones and looking like he's a veteran player. If you didn't know anybody on the roster, you would think that he was one of the better players on the team so far. So I think that the hype is warranted.
The biggest thing, and you just mentioned it with, the vertical jump, like from an explosiveness and an athleticism standpoint for a Stephen F. Austin guy, like he does not look out of place at all whatsoever. And as you were talking there, I was just going back in my mind of thinking like, okay, who are the cornerbacks that we've seen them draft since I've covered the team in 2020, since 2022? And Andrew Booth Jr., like, just to compare the two, Chuck Demings' ability to play the football is leaps and bounds beyond that. You think about Mekhi Blackman, the physicality that Chuck Demings plays with and the ability to play the ball has stood out through 7 practices in the spring more than I can ever remember with Mekhi Blackman, a guy I really did like at times watching, in some of these practices. So, and then the part about the attitude and the personality, this, Coller, and Garrett, you do too. Like this is a team. It is the NFL and it is a big business, but you need connectors internally to create a chemistry. I thought the Vikings defense that 2 years ago in 2024 celebrated as much as they did after interceptions, after forced fumbles. Like that stuff is silly. It's goofy. It grabs attention, but I do think it can produce like a feeling and a vibe that almost leads you to make more plays. And so everything about this guy, I asked you the question, Coller, about the hype, because I don't believe it is at all. If you ask me every day, who's a guy who stands out, he's on my list every single day. And I introduced myself to him yesterday, and at the end he says, keep being a gift to the world. And I'm like, that's not how I don't try to be that way, but he just has this like effect on people.